Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Well, everyone, it's that time of day again. Grab yourself a pint, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Soul Session. Of course, with your host as always, myself, Soul. But with me today, this man is, well, he's tailor-made to the best of his ways. James Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. Tailor-made is in the house, the big Jimmer. But one thing for sure, I am not a crybaby.
No, absolutely not, James. You are a true tailor-made man, and that's what we like to have around here. But of course, James, you know, every guest has a story. Every story has a beginning. James, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
Oh, I can pinpoint the exact moment. I remember my first match and first show. It was the SmackDown after WrestleMania 19, 2003. I think it must have been about 8 at the time, 7 maybe. And the first match I watched was Rey Mysterio, Undertaker. And then from that, I was just absolutely hooked. Like, if anyone knows me, the whole Ruthless Aggression era from like 2002, 2006 is my bread and butter. I love that stuff. And appreciate I may have missed the Attitude Era, which was like the golden era when it comes to just all the Gaga and gimmicks and stuff. But I'll have Ruthless Aggression any day over any other product. And like I said, that is probably where it started. There's so many up and coming talents at that time, the early days of Cena, Randy Orton. I was just constantly just churning out so much like top talent during that time. And and for whatever reason, 20 years on, I'm still involved with wrestling and all over it.
He's still kicking it, brother. Still kicking it indeed.
Yeah.
But the Ruthless Aggression era obviously is a very loved era. I know people like to harp on about, the Attitude Era, but I think overrated. Ruthless Aggression is where it's at. That's where the fun and joy is and all the kicking happens. But that era in particular, what is it about it, James, that you think really appeals to people? Was it just the talent back then, or how the product was presented? What is it about the Ruthless Aggression era has that catch hold upon wrestling fans?
I think it's because it's more of a variety show during that period, because you've got all the storylines and the Gaga, the Austin 316, all the gimmicks that come from that period in the Ruthless Aggression. In Attitude Era. I appreciate that begins to water down. That probably takes more of a backseat, but you've got a period where you've got somebody like Guerrero and Edge opening the show, Kurt Angle, Jericho. Like, you've got so much top talent, but then you've still got the character side of it all as well. I just think it was just such a good combination of having like top quality wrestling matches and then maybe bringing it down with a bit of comedy, segments, promos. I think everything is just firing on all cylinders. There's some huge changes during that time with, like I said, Rock steps away to go to Hollywood, Austin as a break as well. And it's just so many people looking for top slots at that time. And I just think the competition from like watch like a SmackDown pay-per-view or like an opening show, you've got like the cruiserweights just going balls to walls for like the first like 8 minutes, and it's just pure action. Then you have a bit of maybe the character stuff and the comedy and all that, and then you get into your main events. And I just think that the cards are so solid during that time, and I think it has its purpose, because if you're watching the same type of wrestling, as a viewer, as a consumer, you can maybe get bored. But I think during that time, it was just so much going on, and the more variety, I think the better it is for wrestling. I think that's why it stands out, to be honest.
Hey, mate, I think you're 100% right there. You look at not only just the match types, the presentation, and everything going on in the Ruthless Aggression, but the performers as well are so varied. From Rey Mysterio to Angle to Cena to Orton, Edge, Shelton Benjamin. And it's fascinating that a lot of those names are still going on in the modern day. You've got Adam Copeland, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin in AEW. And then you've got Cena, who's entering his final year, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, all still going on. And that's insane to think. What is it about the performers from obviously back then that still going on active now? Is it just, how they present themselves, that fans still have that massive connection to them? Is it just their ring style? What is it about the stars of the Ruthless Aggression era give themselves that longevity within the business to modern day?
It's a very good question. I think I think a lot of them, like I said, as they come maybe in their younger days of the business, I think they immediately found their role within the first couple of years. Like, they found their stride in terms of what their gimmick was going to be, what their moveset was going to be. And like I said, it's Randy Orton, for example, because I know people criticizing, oh, he's a bit boring and all this stuff. It's just the same old thing. But if you, as someone who's like a wrestler now, just like watching like his body of work in terms of just everything is so seamless. And I think that applies to a lot of the guys because they know their roles, they know who they are as a wrestler. And I think that body of work is just carried on throughout the next 20 years. And yeah, it's weird because a lot of them are in their 40s, even like in their 50s now. If you talk about Copeland there as well, there's no sign of them slowing down. And you'd always think like early 40s would probably be the bit where you tail off, but some of them still look great. And there's no sign of them slowing down. It's just they know themselves, they know their body, and the longevity that comes with it.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, Orton still going on, Ray still going on. As I mentioned, Shelton's going on in AEW and having a real resurgence of his career and getting the opportunity to absolutely kill it. But obviously, Cena, 2025 will be his full last year within WWE and then hanging up the boots. For yourself, James, a fan of that era of wrestling, the Ruthless Aggression, where Cena made his start, to see him now entering the end within 2025, your thoughts on that as a fan?
No wrestler ever stays retired. So we can, he may say that he's done, but you've seen so many wrestlers say that they call it a day. And, you know, even in this business, we're all addicted to the adrenaline and the highs that come with wrestling that, you know, maybe seen as a bit more calculated in terms of what he's done. But there's a list of so many people who say they're retired and they're done and they come back. Like I said, Edge, who would have thought that would have happened? Daniel Bryan as well. Even Flair, to be honest. But I think in this business, you never really stay retired. You're always going to be involved, even if it means that it's just a little spot there and there. But I don't think it'll be like a goodbye forever. There's always a way back, isn't there? It's not like any other sport where you're done. You will find your way back. So I don't know, for any big fans of Cena out there, I'm on their side with he's still got a lot more in him. If he wants to do it, of course.
Never say never. It's always those three famous words within wrestling. But obviously, you know, saying hypothetically, this is Cena's done and done. He has mentioned that next year will be his last WrestleMania, 41 in Vegas. Some people have ideas for plans. Some people think of this, think of that. I want to know yourself, James. Is there a particular plan you'd love to see Cena do at WrestleMania 41?
I think it's hard because you could go back on like past rivalries and storylines that he's been in. Like I know Randy Orton's one of his best dance partners, even CM Punk to that degree. So you could go down maybe old historic route of getting, you know, one last great rival with that. Like I said, it's still a trilogy with The Rock, but then is it more the case that he needs to pass on the torch to, you know, what's the future and what's the peak of the current roster? Like, so you can throw somebody like Cody in there, you can throw somebody like Gunter in there. I think any decision that they come down to, I think it'll be the right one every way. It'll be hard for us to maybe pinpoint the exact way that he's gonna step away. Like we're all talking about him winning the 17th world title, but I don't know. It's just there's so many options, but I think whatever way they do it, especially WWE, the way it'll be presented in package will be out of this world and it'll probably be a fitting send off. And if he's not happy with it, I'm sure he'll come back in 6 months.
Oh, the joys indeed. That's the fun of it. But obviously, Ruthless Aggression, a lot of people think of Raw, SmackDown, but really in, you know, the later half of that era was kind of when WWE ECW came about and being like a kind of a third competition. Yeah. Obviously, December to Dismember happened. It happened. And, you know, Bobby Lashley had the championship. Durag Vince had the championship. It made its parts. But do you think if, you know, how NXT is treated now as like maybe a true viable option was given to the same as WWE ECW, do you think it could have been a true competitor brand, like a valuable third brand back in the day?
I think the issue was during that time, because even myself as a fan, I pretty much checked out from wrestling during that time. I'd say probably six or 7 months after that particular pay-per-view. I think Lashley went. I think so many people like went and got injured. Like Van Damme, Undertaker was injured. Like a lot of them left, and I just personally checked out because I just weren't enjoying it because none of my favorites were on TV and was growing up. But I think the biggest issue of that ECW remake was the fact it was called ECW. If it was called something else, it'd be completely different. I think there's 1 or 2 documentaries about, did ECW fail, did it not? But then you see more people like Mark Cardona, for example. He said that was probably one of the best times of his career because he actually got to find himself. Yeah, it was on a lesser brand, there's less views and stuff, but you had a lot more guys maybe at the bottom or the underneath of the cards to actually figure out who they were and what their body of work was and put themselves in that situation. But again, I think it was just the actual brand, and those three letters are so legendary in this business to try and reinvent that and not really have, I said even Heyman leaves at that point. It's difficult because it's not ECW. It's just a third brand at the end of the day, and it just had so much pressure from the off because watching it early on, it wasn't good for what they were doing booking wise. I remember in particular.
Yeah, no, it's a very ghost in sheep's clothing kind of situation, and I think it really speaks to the volume of the the phrase lightning never strikes twice, or lightning in a bottle moment. Do you think with wrestling in particular, when a wrestler could get very hot or very over and it's not capitalized in the moment, do you think wrestling really encapsulates the phrase lightning in a bottle?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think, like you said, lightning doesn't strike twice in those scenarios. If you've got something like, if it's a brand or it's a gimmick or catchphrase, moveset, whatever, so just ride it, enjoy it. And if you feel like things are starting to turn their way, you just have to reinvent yourself and repackage it into something else. I think a lot of the great wrestlers have been able to do that if they've got something that's really good and there's maybe signs that it's beginning to wither off. Just drop it on its head before it becomes, maybe a shadow of what it once was, and go from there. I think Jericho was probably the best example of that. The List was one of the favorite things he did, but he got it so over, but he hasn't brought it back because he probably knows it'll just be a parody of what it was at his peak. And I think a lot of wrestlers have done that just to make sure that they preserve the integrity of that original, like I said, idea, gimmick, moveset, example, promotion. I think that's important just to keep it there rather than it dips. So that's usually my thoughts on that. But it is hard because we watch the old product and we're like, love it to be like that again. But it's a different age now, unfortunately.
Hey, time moves on. You can't go back, sadly. It's always a moving forward time frame. Has there ever been a lightning in the bottle moment that you thought was never capitalized on and thought, what, if they had, that would have been gold?
Oh, so many. If you're talking more like WWE specifically, I can list a few. I don't know if they'd be like the biggest things, but I remember Damien Mizdow. I was all over that at one point. He was so over. I even remember maybe it worked out for that reason, but I remember Ryback being so over in that first 6 months on that tear. What else we got? I know there's loads, and so many things have failed when you think they're going to be the best thing ever. Roman Reigns early on, we thought he was going to be the future and all that, and it was like, how can this keep going on and on and on? And again, he just repackaged himself and it became one of the greatest characters ever based on that. But there's so many, you could list 20 what ifs about certain wrestlers, and you don't know what happens backstage and stuff. So when CM Punk left the first time, I was devastated, and it's taken 10 years to get that back as well. But I don't know. I always say the biggest what if would be, I always want to see what would happen if maybe Guerrero was around for a lot longer, because he's my favorite hands down. But in terms of what he could have still done and still gone, I think that would have changed the business quite a lot, just based that he wasn't the typical big guy wrestler. But I think they were just scratching the surface with him.
100% there. Guerrero is such a fantastic and fascinating individual. Obviously not been with us for so long now, but even people getting into wrestling like myself, I got into 2019. One of the first names that would come up was Eddie Guerrero. His legacy transcends time itself and is always peering up in top 10 lists or dream matches. I think it really speaks to the man's caliber. What is it, James, about Eddie Guerrero was it just his presence or his ring work that makes his legacy, even though he's been gone for so long, transcend the test of time?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, because I think it's been about 19 years since his passing, and like they still mention him on shows. If somebody does the Three Amigos or like the chair spot example, they will all chant Eddie, because it's just what the impression that he left on maybe fans at that time. And like you said, was somebody who's maybe at the peak of his powers and said a lot in the tank. I think it was just devastating as a community, because I remember being in school at that time, and didn't really have that much access to the internet and stuff, and we pretty much just found out in the schoolyard, and we were all devastated. But I think with him in particular, if I was looking back as maybe as a child, it was just the flamboyancy in terms of, this was a guy who was like 5'7". He come up with a lowrider. His gear was always on point. His body of work was exceptional, but I probably didn't see that as much as a kid, as opposed to now when you watch back his stuff. But he was just so entertaining, and he was so versatile. Like you said, you could put him in any position on the card, like as an opener, a tag, main event, and he'd steal the show just by being him, just his charisma just shone through. I think when you're talking about that era of wrestling, so many of them were versatile, like Kurt Angle on that subject, one of the best in-ring performers. But I don't think he gets enough credit for how versatile he was as a character, because some of the stuff that he got away with and some of the segments he used to do, I think people forget that. And I think I was probably more drawn to the character side of wrestling for that. But if they could go as well, that's just a bonus for everyone watching it, if you could do everything. Because that generation is just hitting home runs on all cylinders.
Yeah, really a home run generation. So I got to ask, James, your Mount Rushmore of the ruthless aggression era, what 4 wrestlers do you think are the peak representing that era?
Yeah. So if it was my own personal one, like all time, there's 2 on you from this era straight away, and that's Guerrero and Van Damme. Those 2 are my favorites. I'd have to put Cena in there, because I think just the whole, from what he starts to what he ends up becoming out of that period, he's on there as well. I was a big Bobby Lashley fan. I still am. I don't know why. I've just enjoyed watching him. But I think number 4 on that would be Orton as well. I think that you've got the 2 greatest in that period with Cena and Orton. But then my 2 personal favorites will always be Van Damme and Guerrero.
Right. Fair list indeed. I don't think there'll be a lot of people that dispute that. I think they'll be very happy with the individuals you've picked there. But fascinating is what you mentioned. I was being a fan of Bobby Lashley. He's currently in AEW. Later half of his career, he did the Hurt Business that was very popular. Some people said didn't get the moment that it deserved. Did the Pride with the Street Profits this year. Now obviously Hurt Syndicate in AEW. Your thoughts on the year that Bobby Lashley has had? Someone who's been on WrestleMania 40 to now being in AEW.
Yeah, it's a strange one. He talked about biggest what ifs, like when he said the Hurt Business. Maybe if they carried on the run out once the fans roll back in attendance, etc., to see how far it goes. It was very solid in terms of what they were doing during COVID, because, like I say, it was a hard watch during that time. But you at least still had little pockets if it was them carrying the show. But it's a weird one because, sorry, I always enjoyed his body of work, etc. And I thought what he did at WrestleMania 40 was pretty cool, with the whole hardcore tag team match, etc. Just to keep the local Philadelphia fans happy. But yeah, you had it for like about a 2-year period that he was just in a backstage managerial role, and it's like he can still go. Like he was having like incredible matches with Brock Lesnar, still floating around the title picture. Would have liked to see him do something in Roman Reigns. Like I said, if you had the Pride or even the Hurt Business, to do something with the Bloodline and have like a big payoff on a pay-per-view, like even if it was like War Games that was on yesterday. I just feel like they could have done 1 or 2 things extra with him and then maybe revisit. But I haven't really seen much of his AEW stuff at the moment. Just been so busy personally myself. But like I said, if something pops up on Instagram of a reel, he's still putting a shift in. Shelton Benjamin as well. So hopefully they get maybe a fitting way of keeping the Hurt Business, the Hurt Syndicate going now, and maybe they can have a bit more input on what they actually want, what direction to be.
Absolutely. I think it speaks volumes for how changing your environment, whether it's your place of work or, opponents you face, can revitalize you. People look at Shelton Benjamin, somebody who wasn't really doing much for
Yeah.
the Hurt Business in WWE. Immediately on AEW, he's like super kicking. People are thinking like, where's this guy been? How is he not WWE champion? Do you think it's maybe positive in modern day wrestling for wrestlers to always scout their options and see where they can maybe reinvent themselves or get a fresh new take in the wrestling landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're in one place for such a long period of time, like I said, if that's on the big scale or local, independent, etc., you don't know how you deal in different environments and different situations. So, like, I've been, like I said, personally, I've been around Europe for best part of the year, just trying to network and train and get opportunities on European promotions. I probably question my abilities, and I may use a doubt in self belief. It's like, how far can I actually go with this? I'm in Europe now, not the UK, and you've just got to. It's just sink or swim. But when it comes to that, and like any sort of stage when it comes to wrestling, is that you gotta go all in and just move from environment to environment just to keep yourself relevant and just keep testing yourself, because you don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again locally and it doesn't work like 2 hours down the road. You need to read the room, know your environment. And I appreciate any sort of wrestler's going to have teething problems with it, but that's what keeps it exciting, is that you've got to keep challenging yourself. So yeah, I think that would be my response on that.
Mm-hmm. I think kind of way to describe it is like, you're in a car, you're on a journey, the gas empty. You could refill that tank and continue the journey in the same car, or you can see another car. It's a new type of atmosphere, a new environment, refill that tank and continue on in a new journey in a new environment.
Absolutely.
It does speak volumes on how that changes. And obviously, James, as I said, once a fan's always a fan, but you were the fan that took a step further and into the actual squared circle itself. And I'd love to know that journey of, exploring the British wrestling scene.
Yeah, so when did I start? I started in 2017. I just come out of university, etc. So I'm entering the big world of work and all this stuff, and just maybe trying to get a bit of a foundation from where I was as a teenager, a ton of debt from uni, and what am I going to do? I got back into wrestling probably towards like 16, 17. I think the pipe bomb just changed my view on wrestling, and maybe just peeling back the curtain was enough for me to get a bit more interest in it. And Network comes out as well, so it's like boom, there's so much here. And I got a mate back home dropped me a message to say there was a school opening not too far from where I was living at the time, and I was like, oh yeah, I think we should go see where it's like. I think it's just like a glorified boxing class or like judo or something, nothing out of the ordinary. On the day it happens, the guy was like, oh, I was joking all this time. I was like, well, I'm still going to go. And Alan Ravenell's School of Welsh Wrestling was my first training school, and I was absolutely hooked from that point. And 7 years, I'm still here. Absolutely living the dream and loving it at the moment.
Hey, still living and kicking, enjoying the dream and living it. That's the main thing, my friend. And of course, you've had some matches across the Welsh scene in particular. I want to talk about, obviously, was at No Mercy Wrestling, the gauntlet match for the Combat Legacy Championship. Championship was quite important to No Mercy Wrestling. Obviously, James Ellis was the inaugural champion for that belt, but yourself obviously being a part of No Mercy in that moment and being part of, well, essentially history, crowning a championship.
Yeah, well, I was the first one out in that match, unfortunately, on that gauntlet. I think Adam Carter and he went the distance on that, and me and James are good personal friends, so I'm happy that he won it, and he held it for, I think it was best part over a year, and what he was able to do with it. So shame it wasn't me that won the belt on that time, but I was first in, he was last in. That's just the nature of the beast sometimes, and I did very well to represent No Mercy during that time. As I said, they were a brand new promotion. I think it's probably been their third show. So Chris Bevan, the promoter, we had a lot of pressure going into, trying to start a new brand and a new following, etc. And like I said, and they're doing very well. I think that, a secondary company, VCW, had a show today, but yeah, it's just an example of how much hard work promoters are doing at the moment. And like I said, from yourself being aware of the No Mercy Legacy belt, hopefully that is bringing a strong message for what James was able to do with it for the best part of it, a year and a half, I believe.
Oh, he is the brilliance for that reason. He really added upon that belt and really made it feel as important. Obviously, as the No Mercy Wrestling Championship that was introduced down the line with Jay Joshua, he really built up that belt. And obviously, Kenny Mantra is the current champion, dethroning Ellis for that belt. I think it just shows that sometimes even world championships or heavyweight championships can sometimes be outshadowed by belts that maybe be seen as lesser class, something like the United States or the Intercontinental or AW's TNT or International. Mid-card belts, obviously what some people call them as. Do you see their place as just important as the world titles?
Yeah, I think that depends on the person who's carrying it and what the relevance is going on around it. Like if you've got wrestler A as the world champion or heavyweight champion, and they're carrying they're supposed to be carrying the company, but like you said, you're talking about maybe mid cards and people being in different positions. Like I said, if their body of work is still on the show, just regardless of what sort of title match or what segment they're involved in, I think that's a credit to the wrestler to maybe outshine maybe the top dog in that promotion just because their body of work is so strong. Maybe it means you've got to switch it around, but we've always said that the Intercontinental Champion has always been the workman's title. It's the one with maybe the better matches, your main events, your heavyweight championships, etc. Yeah, a bit more gaga in the background, but I think it just depends on what the fans want to see in terms of if they want to see top quality wrestling, 15, 20 minutes, maybe those sort of secondary belts, if you want to call them that, is what is for them. But if they want to see drama, action, shenanigans, that's probably sometimes the more heavyweight product. But again, wrestling's a variety show at the end of the day. Some people are saying the main event was class, and people say, well, the 20-minute mid-card championship match stole the show. And like I said, it's just a variety show. My opinion on it may be different to yours, and somebody else's, but that's the beauty of it.
Hey, I say wrestling's a pick and mix. You get to put what you like in the bag.
Yeah.
Some people like those little minstrels. Some people like licorice. I don't know why it's licorice, but I digress. They like it. Also, you mentioned James Ellis, someone who's been on this show twice before in the past. I believe you were tag champions with James in the past as well. Yes,
we were Exposure Wrestling Tag Team Champions. That was September last year. And the great thing about that was we had a full weekend tagging. It's something that we maybe want to do a bit more at some point, just depends on our schedules, etc. But you've got the Tailor-Made Man and the Brilliance, and that together is Tailor-Made Brilliance, ladies and gentlemen. But we had a full weekend. I went to Reach Wrestling and we did 2 shows for Exposure. The final Exposure show was in one of our local nightclubs, Coyote Ugly. It's pretty much around the corner from where my parents live and where have I grown up for like nights out and parties and stuff. So to say that I was able to wrestle in there with one of my best friends in this business and win the belts in front of like friends and family, it was a really awesome moment. Like I said, personally and professionally, probably one of the best things I've ever done, just for those maybe sentimental reasons. But unfortunately, Exposure Management had to put me in a handicap match on the next show because James was unavailable. And I was in a full suit trying to tell all the punters politely I will not be wrestling tonight. And long and behold, I had to forfeit if I didn't defend him right there, right now. So Lucas Casimir and 2K took advantage of this poor tailor-made man. And I remember getting speared out of my £20,000 loafers. And they're somewhere in the ceiling of the venue.
Disrespect to the loafers. I can't even have that as a man of fashionable attire. That is just absolutely disrespectful. Hopefully reimbursement comes in your bright future for those loafers. They are truly needed.
A rematch would have been fantastic, but I didn't happen either.
Absolutely diabolical. But I do obviously want to quickly touch one as well with James. I've had many people in the Welsh scene, from Tilly Rose to Shane Hooker to Leon Cage, speak about how highly they view of James Ellis with his work. Tilly Rose, I remember saying he was probably one of the best heels within Wales, and he's been someone that's been really killing it. So obviously, Riot Cabaret tag team champion with Tate Mayfair's a Rev Pro debut. He was a New Wave Academy champion in the past as well. For yourself, James, your thoughts on James Ellis and his place within Welsh history?
Absolutely killing it. Like I said, from a personal standpoint, as being one of his probably closest friends in the business, he's done so well. He's been able to put himself in good environments, networking with many people, etc. And any sort of time he's had an opportunity, I've never seen him drop the ball on that occasion. And now I think watching his work now, he's maybe in a position to start giving back to maybe more up and coming people, maybe similar to what opportunities he was getting 2-3 years ago, etc. But he stayed entirely humble throughout the whole process, and we're always here for each other. And he deserves any sort of success that he gets.
Fair point indeed. Now, obviously, within Wales, there's many other companies, and while I was doing my old research, as I like to do, I do research, I practice and prepare for these. I saw a show in particular by Carnage, All for Ollie show that they did in the past. I believe it was a charity show for a foundation.
Yes. Oh, God, a long time ago. I can't remember the full details of it, but I remember the particular person, Ollie. Yeah, I think it was like some sort of cancer that he was suffering with, unfortunately, and they got in contact with Carnage about running that fundraiser, and yeah, it was fantastic. It was a lot of money was raised, etc. Good awareness, and yeah, I think I headlined that event. I wrestled JJ Roberts for the Carnage. Well, it was a vacant Carnage Heavyweight Championship at the time. Unfortunately, it was just a little bit short, but it was a very competitive contest. But I don't know if I had a chance to go again for that belt. I'm sure it'd be a different story. But like I said, I think in the bigger picture of things, it was a wonderful thing that they were able to organise to help raise awareness and raise some funds. So I don't know the exact numbers on what they did, but yeah, it was an exceptional effort from everyone to take part in that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, indeed, and it really shows the kindness aspect of wrestling, where people can gather together and do something for a great cause.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, obviously, I know people do it in Scotland and Northern Ireland and England, but from my point of view, obviously being up here in the north, I know there's a lot of community aspects with Welsh wrestling. You see people on other people's shows, you see people training at other training schools. It's very connective. People can go anywhere and not feel like, you can't go anywhere else. It's got that very connective element to it. James, what do you think is about the Welsh scene that has that, connectivity between it?
I think it's the what I'd say probably more our coaches and more senior wrestlers in terms of their ability to network and help just open doors for up and coming wrestlers such as myself and other ones that you've just mentioned there, such as James, Leon Cage, etc. And Brendan White is a prime example of it, who's been doing it for so many years, and he's given us opportunities to network at shows, crew at shows, etc. Just have a conversation with somebody in passing. So I think that is probably one of the things that stands out the most in Wales at the moment, and I think is transitioning more into the UK and Europe just by what I've been able to do this year through what New Wave being able to provide has been great. And like I said, I don't think anyone's going to turn you down if you want to help out on a show and show face and hopefully get an opportunity. So I think it's very grateful that there's so many established wrestlers on the scene that have got these networks. But then, myself, I'm representing New Wave as it's my school now. I'm representing wrestling in Wales. And you see, it's all well and handy to turn up and maybe watch a show, but just get involved and, show this person's actually, wants an opportunity, here to help. May take a couple of shows or maybe on the day by luck, but it just gives you the ability to show you are as a person, not just as a wrestler. And I think as a country, that's probably why we're benefiting so much in Wales at the moment, because there's so much work for such a small country in comparison. I said it's just full weekends of action for everyone. We don't need to travel too far. because it's all on our doorstep at the moment, which is great. But of course, you still need to venture out because you're talking about trying to challenge yourself. But I cannot complain about anything that's going on in Wales at the moment. It's incredible to see just so many promotions, so many shows, and the opportunities that people are getting from it. Me, myself, and others benefiting.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to attend a Welsh show in the future, but 6-hour train ride down south and no booze is a bit of a bad
Yeah.
environment for a Scotsman. So when they can put alcohol back on trains, I'll be down. But digress on that point there. Obviously, I know, James. Well, I believe in 2023, didn't you not suffer an injury? An ACL tear.
Yeah. So I've had 2 injuries to my knee. I tore my MCL. I think it was like the first training session in 2020, and I was about 6 to 8 weeks in a brace. Just as I was ready to come back, COVID happened. So spent the best part of a year and a half with no shows and stuff, just trying to rehab and just look at exercise and nutrition and a different approach, etc. So that was all addressed pretty quick. And then I was in a rumble for Welsh wrestling up in North Wales. And it was James Ellis, actually. I gave him an axe handle off the second rope, and that's pretty much safe as houses move to deliver to somebody. And I just landed so awkwardly and I feel my knee go. But it wasn't like the pain I had the first time round when I first tore my knee. So it happens, and I'm like, all right, give it a couple of weeks, I should be fine. I did that for like an entire year, and then when I actually admitted the fact I needed to maybe get some help, my ACL was partially torn, and the meniscus was torn as well. And that was, about November. I finished my last shows and just had to admit the fact that I can't wrestle anymore. I really teetered with long-term future with trying to work on it for the best part of a year. Being in constant pain, sitting on this chair now, if I try and get out of a seat, it'd probably go out of place. It was such a terrible experience, but something I just had to swallow my pride on and just accept the fact I needed help. I got in contact with a personal trainer. His name's Sam Owen, Welsh strength coach on Instagram, and he'd been asking me for months to join his program, and I was like, it's powerlifting, it's squatting, it's deadlifting, it's gonna wreck my knees, etc. And he gave me a free trial. I was like, just see what it is for a month. And we pretty much went to basics, just a 20 kilo bar on my back, try and squat, very painful. Try and deadlift with just the bar, very painful. Once I was able to do 5 reps, I was like, add a 2.5 kilos to the bar, and we'll just keep doing that 3 times a week. Out of nowhere, what's 20 kilos becomes 3 figures. A year and a half of him now, I've broken PRs, and all those problems seem to have gone away. And really, because of him and what he's been able to teach me, I've had the busiest year of my career so far, and that's only within 6 months because I came back in the April. So that's a big shout out to Sam on that. If anyone wanted to visit his page, his principles when it comes to nutrition, exercise, etc. He's the man. He is the man for that, and I'm so grateful that if I didn't get in contact with him, I don't know what would have happened to my knee right now. But it was a lot to learn about myself and just accepting that I needed help. But sometimes you have to go through the darkest of trenches just to get rewards at the end of the day, and that was a big experience for me.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go through hell and brimstone to emerge on the light on the other side, and I'm glad things are better for you now. Does your mindset in the ring change now with doing certain moves and how you present yourself or approach things, obviously with the injuries?
I think I have to accept the fact that as a probably more strength based on my day-to-day exercises, I may not be as fluid as much, maybe more to high flying and maybe being on the ground, etc. That's never been me as a wrestler anyway, but I've got to accept the fact that I maybe can't do that, and if I can't do it, I can't do it well. You just have to focus on the strengths that you have as a wrestler, because not every person can do everything that comes with making you a good wrestler. Like I said, there's people at the top for a reason for that, but I know what my strengths are, and I think the quality of me as a wrestler would tone down if I tried to do stuff that would be maybe a bit difficult for my knees, etc., and my health. So I think it's probably more put me in a better position, just because I know I can hone in on certain things within wrestling as opposed to looking at it all overall and just trying to do stuff that I probably wouldn't be comfortable with anymore. And that's just learning from past mistakes and just understanding your body.
I am glad things are on the up for you, my friend, and that physio helped you out, and that's just the main thing from it as well. Because I know, because obviously this is December, but last month in November, didn't you not go to Europe for WXW training academy?
Yeah, so this was my second stint in Europe this year. I did Pro Wrestling Holland on the Friday. It was me and Leon Cage that travelled out there. Unbelievable experience. I met everyone from PWH in the summer when they did a summer camp, and Tenkwa, the promoter, kept in contact. Really good friend of mine now, and he's just encouraging to get more maybe British people to come over, and hopefully being able to open the doors on that to get more people to come over. So it was a weird show because it was like, I appreciate the wrestling scene's not big in other parts of Europe. So what their formula is, they paired up the wrestling with a comedy show. So you'd have block 1 was comedians, block 2 was wrestling, and repeat until the show's over. And I opened the show, and it was crazy because I asked him, I was like, what do you want? He's like, I just want British wrestling. And I was like, well, like just world of sport, chain wrestling, all that stuff. He's like, yeah, that I want to be the meanest man in the building. Okay, no problem. I think there's a clip on my Instagram where I've got who's the opponent, Nico Nakizo. He's in a hammerlock, and he does this cool reversal through the legs, headlock takedown. And if you look at my Instagram, like everyone is like out of their seats like that. And I was like, I've never ever seen a reaction like that for something that is just so bread and butter in this country. And it was crazy. And like you said, you talk about putting yourself in different environments to literally display that, probably what they've never seen before was unreal. And that was probably one of the highlights of my year. But yeah, to go back on track, yeah, we did WXW then. We had Survivor Series action, Team New Wave against Team WXW. And New Wave were the winners on that. Good old Mulligan, the sole survivor. Yeah, pulled it out with a bag for us. And then, yeah, I finished up in OTT for their contenders camp, and finished up with a tag team with a fellow Scotsman, Martin McAllister.
Mr. McAllister himself, yes. Seen on Instagram you two hanging out. Obviously, he said, he's a bit of a vegan. He likes to preach that with Ellie Armstrong and CPW. I've seen you like... bit of the meat, bit of the old steaks and all that. That's a good taste. It's a good taste. Martin, your thoughts on the boy?
Well, OTT management, I don't know why they would want to pair up a vegan with somebody who was like a full carnivore. We're at a major disadvantage there straight away. I was like, really? I was like, it's just oil and water. We're not going to mix. And I think that resulted in the defeat we had, because there's just no chemistry. If we can't get on with each other as people, how are we going to do it in the ring? But outside of that, as a person, Martin was fantastic. We tried our best, but if he started to eat animal-based products, I think we'd be looking at a long-term tag team. But he's too busy saving the planet, and I'm too busy trying to get the dub. But he didn't want to smoke. I'm sure our paths will cross again, but if Martin is listening, I hope he's doing well.
James, it's the festive season. Maybe you could send them a hamper of bacon, steaks, festive joy.
Yeah, I know I can go along about diets and stuff. Everybody's different in terms of how they eat and stuff. I got my way of doing it, but if he wants to have a festive bake from Greg's, no problem.
I'm sure he would have some opinions on that.
He would chuck it back at me.
Very much so. Very much so. Obviously, we've talked about Welsh wrestling in itself. I think the wider world of wrestling will know, obviously, Welsh wrestling, obviously, with Principality Stadium, Clash of the Castle. The inaugural event was there, Hold, and obviously this year it was in Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah. people have said, oh, we want more than Clash of the Castle. We would like a Big Four, a Rumble, or a Money in the Bank again, or SummerSlam. Do you think the odds of that are more likely now than ever, or do you think maybe Clash of the Castle will always be our UK staple?
No, I think undoubtedly, I think the inevitable will happen. And I think this particular calendar year for WWE, what they've been able to do, obviously you got Scotland, you had Leon for Backlash, you had Germany. The following's there, the product is there. I think they've added, I think some of the stronger pay-per-views have come from Europe just because of just European fans, just in terms of how rowdy we are. Like I say, we watch a football match, it just feels like you're in that. And I think that's always been the great thing. It's not just a UK thing in terms of how rowdy we can be as fans and to be entertained, but I think that echoes across Europe. So if you're talking about like a Rumble, a WrestleMania, a SummerSlam, a Survivor Series, it's got to happen. It will happen, I think, in the next 10 years. I think maybe the biggest issue that I think people have had with it is maybe probably about the time zone difference for the States and the UK for that. But for 1 year, if they've got to start their day a little bit earlier, it saves us waking up at 1 o'clock and slugging through the night till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, I think it'll be a no-brainer at some point. It's just when and where.
Exactly. The Americans can stop crying. We've had generations of lost sleep pattern from all of this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like WrestleMania, I think this year, I don't think I went to bed till like 6 o'clock, and I was like, well, I got work in a couple of hours. I'm like, what am I doing?
Exactly. Be like a strong-willed, eat your meat, and you'll be able to get to shows at 6 a.m. So come on, boys, you can do it. But obviously, people always say WrestleMania UK. Now, look, I'm selfish. I want it in Scotland, so I don't have to travel down south or go anywhere else. So I could sit in my own humble abode and be like, it's across the street. I can go there. But if anywhere, I would like it in the Principality. Not only just to screw over the English, but I think it would be a great venue. It was great for Clash of the Castle, the inaugural event. Do you think Principality, the stadium itself, is a viable host for a WrestleMania?
Yes, I think so. And I think being around Clash of the Castle, because I went to the show and just, like I said, I live in Cardiff now. So being around it in terms of just like the whole festivities, like the town was just plastered in merchandise, memorabilia. It was a proper takeover. You had so many people come in, and I think if you maybe look at the bigger picture when it comes to big sporting events or entertainment, etc., there seems to be more of a sway towards the Principality as opposed to maybe Wembley when it comes to big boxing events or any sort of major attractions that happen in sport. So I don't know why that is. Why they seem to use the Principality a lot more now for like these major sporting events, not just within wrestling. But it'd be amazing to have that in Wales. Like I said, it's weird to say that, to have a conversation and say WrestleMania is in Wales. But I think the only other alternative venue that I could think of, I think we'd have to discount Wembley just because of AEW at the moment, is probably say the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Just because I think the whole stadium is state of the art in terms of what they've been able to do. I said, any football fans, I'm not a Tottenham fan. I cannot stand them. But if you just look at what they're able to do when they have the NFL and other major events, it does look like a spectacle, and the quality is just out of this world, and from what they've been able to introduce into that stadium. So I think that would be maybe a good alternative. I think a lot of people would be like, not Tottenham. But that would be my two on that currently.
Hey, it's a spectacle arena. It's nice. People will like it. It'll look good on the camera. So, wherever you think of Tottenham, it's a spectacle arena. It'll do the job. Obviously, James, you mentioned being in Europe, and obviously that British style of wrestling was quite, appealing to fans. Some of them got off their feet for simple things, and obviously World of Sport. The ideally of, British strong style and what British wrestling means always to us. Obviously, we have, holiday camps, we have the hardcores of like Progress and Rev Pro, family fun environment, like I mentioned, with holiday camps, and then in betweens with like, Riot Cabaret and New Wave. Do you think British wrestling in itself is one of the most versatile styles of wrestling because you have so many areas to pick it up?
I think so, and I think it's the waterfall effect of what's been passed on from generation to generation, because World of Sport was World of Sport for that period of time. I appreciate it's something that doesn't really maybe work anymore, the round style, or it maybe hasn't been reinvented in that sense. But I think when it comes to British wrestling, and I think Joel Redman was probably the person who told me this, but he told about a stint he had in Japan when he left WWE, and that I think he was maybe frustrated about, he was trying to match the Japanese for like their sort of strong style wrestling, etc. And it was more of like, we've brought you in as a British wrestler. As a British wrestler, I expect you to do A, B, and C, which is to be proficient in chain, and similar to what World of Sport was. We want you to do that. And then I think he went on a tear then for that sort of run. And I think when I've gone to Europe in those scenarios, that is kind of what they expect for that reason. And actually, I remember being in like Holland and Budapest in the summer for training camps, and just working with some of the guys and just like grappling, etc. Some of the stuff that I was doing, what I personally thought was just normal run-of-the-mill stuff, they were like saying stuff like, "Oh, you're a magician," and all that. I'm like, I'm not at all. It's just what we do in the UK. And I said, if anyone trains, especially in Wales at the moment, our big priorities are to make sure that our grappling and our technical wrestling is on point, and our rolling and our body control, etc., is very high before maybe look into the high spots and the cool moves, etc. I just think our fundamentals in the UK just shine compared to the rest of Europe, or even the world in that sense. So if it's a lesson learned for myself, that if I ever go to Europe, there's not a problem to maybe bring more of a British style to matches, just because that's probably what they expect to see. And reading the room is such an important thing. If you go the opposite direction of what they want or they don't want to see, then you've lost the fans. In my opinion, you've always got, whatever sort of show you're on, just got to follow what they want. If it's action, if it's high spots, or if it's just comedy, you've always got to read the room.
Read the room and you'll get the reward and audience that you want. It's the simple thing as that. James Taylor, my friend, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the Soul Sessions. But of course, before we wrap up, one final question. It's December time, Mariah Carey season, festive seasons all around, ham and turkeys and Brussels sprouts galore. Obviously, then it'll be 2025, new season, new start for people. I want to know, my friend, what are some of your goals to achieve in 2025?
So this year has been fantastic. Like I say, coming back from injury to now over 100 matches for the year, which I never thought I'd be able to do. So I can't see why 150, 200 it isn't realistic now. I'm really enjoying my rest at the moment with my body of work currently. So I think personally, just to have more reps and enjoy the journey that I've been on is the most important. I'd like to go to more countries and start maybe networking a bit more across Europe. I've been able to do that now, but I want to make sure I'm returning back to places such as Ireland and Holland, Hungary, Germany, etc. So I think that is a priority. And I think it's just important just to enjoy it. I think as wrestlers, we do put ourselves under a lot of pressure. But I think certainly this year, I think I've learned a lot to celebrate the positives more than dwell on negatives that can happen sometimes. Because as humans, we can always beat up ourselves in terms of, oh, this could have been better. But then we're all living a dream at the end of the day in this business. We're having fun, we're entertaining. Just want to make sure that I celebrate any sort of victories that I have within wrestling, and just keep enjoying it. And of course, I think being there for, like I said, peers and fellow wrestlers, just to make sure that the community keeps growing and growing, because in Wales we're really on to a very good boom at the moment, which I can't see slowing down.
I think you just said it absolutely perfect there, my friend. And I tell you what, I think for yourself, I think 2025 is going to be a tailor-made year, my friend. Indeed.
Of course. Every year is tailor-made for the big Joe.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Well, James Taylor, thank you for appearing here on the Soul Sessions. And of course, folks, if you've heard of the Tailor-Made Man, you can find his Instagram description down below. Click it, follow his journey, and see what a true tailor-made year is indeed. Well, folks, Finish up your pints, put your chairs away, and thank you as always for tuning in for another episode of the Old Soul Sessions.
Now about the human too. Gonna live like animals do. No more laws and no more